I'd like to welcome everybody to our regular council meeting for Monday, November 18th at 6 o'clock. We have all of our council members in attendance today. Our deputy mayor is attending virtually. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of the First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. If you are able, please stand for our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras sait porter l'épée, il sait porter la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you. We will go to our clerk and director of Legal and Legislative Services, Director Malandrucolo.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Through you. On November 13, 2024 at 6 p.m., council moved into closed session as permitted to do so pursuant to section 239(2)(f) and J of the Municipal Act 2001 to receive advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege and to discuss a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, or financial information. On November 18, 2024 at 4:30 p.m., council moved into closed session as permitted to do so pursuant to section 239(2)(c) of the Municipal Act 2001 to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land. And on November 18, 2024 at 5 p.m., council moved into closed session as permitted to do so pursuant to section 239(2)(c), E, F, and J of the Municipal Act 2001 to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land, to discuss litigation or potential litigation, to receive advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, and to discuss a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, or financial information that belongs to the municipality. And that is the extent of my report.
Any declarations of conflicts of interest from members of council this evening? Okay, if you find yourself in conflict later, just let us know. I need a mover and a seconder of the adoption of the published agenda for the regular council meeting for November 18th. And we're going to adopt it as amended. We did get a notice of motion from Councillor Mady, and also Director Chadwick is speaking to the regional transportation grant, not our manager of economic development. So needing a mover and a seconder of the amendment, Councillor McGuire-Blaise and Councillor Verbeek. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Adoption of the regular council meeting minutes for November 4th, needing a mover and a seconder that we adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting as circulated. Councillor Mady, supported by Councillor Allard, all in favor? That is carried. Adoption of the special council meeting minutes for October 7th, the Harrow High School future property. Needing a mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Verbeek. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to public presentations, Andrea Dwight, President of Blue Sky Energy Engineering and Consulting, is here to speak to us tonight. She is online. Director Morissette, did you want to say anything before? Okay, welcome Andrea too. And we'll have our director introduce you.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi, and good evening, Council. The Energy Conservation and Demand Management Plan is a legislative requirement from the province of Ontario, and I'm happy to say that administration was able to work with Andrea Dwight to complete this plan over the past few months. Today, we have Ms. Dwight from Blue Sky Engineering and Consulting Incorporated, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Dwight to take us through the plan.
Great. Thank you very much for allowing me to attend. I've been asked to take everyone through the high points of the recently assembled Energy Conservation and Demand Management Plan. And if I could, is it possible to get that up onto a screen so we can take a look at it? So the plan is driven by Ontario Regulation 50718 of the Electricity Act, and it lays the foundation for energy conservation at the town for the next 5-year period up to the end of 2029. And the regulation requires that the scope of work be such that it covers all of the buildings that require heating amongst the corporate facilities. And in addition to that, this plan also covers pumping stations, wastewater treatment plants, and street lighting. What is not included in this particular scope of work is your fleet. So that's important to see. If we can move to page, so the first section is introduction. So I'd like to move us to section number 2, which is page 5, please. So page 5 is after the introductions. This is a section of accomplishments, and I think it's really important to celebrate the hard work that the town has done over the last 5 years. And this list is over 35 different projects that have impacted energy consumption at the town over the last 5 years. And it's important to note that over the last 5 years, this has resulted in a 1.5% improvement in energy compared to 2019, and about a 2.5% reduction in GHG emissions. And I'm not going to go through these, but I welcome you to go through those when you have a moment. And they cover all sorts of projects, from changing and upgrading lighting systems to HVAC upgrades. And the team has done a really great job in implementing these projects. If we can move to page 9, please. The next section is historical energy performance. And you'll see in table 3.1 is a summary of the total energy consumed by the town in 2011, 2019, and 2023, 5-year increments. Please note that overall, the GHG emissions have dropped significantly since 2011, which is really great news. Also, your electricity has also, consumption has dropped since 2011. If we could move to the next page, 10, please. This is, please review figure 3.1, please. This is a breakdown of energy use year by year at the town, broken down by natural gas and electricity. Natural gas is being converted from meters cubed to equivalent kilowatt hours so that they can be compared with electricity rates. And electricity is the green, natural gas is blue, and the yellow at the top is street lighting. Unfortunately, we didn't have data before 2016 that was reliable, but it would have shown a huge drop in electricity use as you started moving into LED lighting on your street lights. And it should be noted that there has been an 18% drop in electricity use on street lighting since 2019, which is pretty good, pretty awesome. Okay, so next page, please. And please feel free to ask any questions as I go along. This is a summary of the natural gas and electricity consumption by building for 2023. And it gives you an indication of which buildings are actually consuming the most energy. And of course, both of your arenas, street lighting, sewage treatment plants are large electricity consumers. And both of their arenas are the largest natural gas consumers as well. Okay, next page, sorry. So I'd like to direct you down to 3.5 at the bottom here. This is a breakdown of 2023 energy by fuel type. Natural gas is 37% of the total energy that you used, and electricity is 63%. And we'll want to take a look at those numbers in comparison to the impact of these two fuel sources on GHG emissions a little later in the page coming up. So if we could now go to page 14. So this one here, figure 3.6, if you'll remember, natural gas was a small percentage, 37% of the overall energy use, but it's responsible for 78% of your total GHG emissions. So as you review climate planning and GHG reduction plans, the reduction of fossil fuel use at the town needs to be addressed from a long-term planning standpoint, because without the reduction of natural gas usage, you won't be able to significantly improve your GHG emissions. All right, so if there aren't any questions, I will ask to go to page 16, please. So through a process of working with the team at Essex, a number energy vision, conservation vision, objectives and goals were assembled along with a target. And I'd like everyone to direct you. I'd like to direct you to the target that was selected, and it is a 3% reduction in overall energy use by 2029, measured against the 2023 annual energy consumption. And although this sounds like a small number, it's actually quite significant. And I believe that there are a number of really great projects that have been developed to make sure that you can achieve this goal. Okay, next page, please. So the town has taken on several priorities to focus on over the next 5 years that will all help to ensure that meet your goals. The first is funding for energy conservation. So making sure that the town leverages all of the incentive opportunities from the federal government as well as from your local utilities to make improvements in technology. The second priority was this is a very important one, is to really look at the asset management and capital planning process. And to really think through putting through some guidelines regarding energy efficient purchasing of large capital. So for instance, you have an older boiler that's coming to the end of life. It's really important to really think through what technology you want to replace that boiler with, and whether or not it's smart to do it in kind or with something new, because that boiler, a new boiler will be there for 25, 30 years. And so that kind of decision would impact your ability to reduce GHGs and energy use for many, many years to come. So this is quite an important piece. Could I get to the next page, please? Thank you. So identification of energy savings opportunities. So putting in place a planning process that facilities will be reviewed and delivering cost savings through the identification and implementation of programs and processes and projects on an ongoing basis, and taking some of the recommendations as are feasible from net zero studies, et cetera, to make sure that they're incorporated and that they actually get delivered. The fourth priority is communication, training, and outreach. And this is leveraging some free and really interesting programs that are offered through the IASO and other organizations to create opportunities for training for staff to understand how energy is used, how to save it, how to conserve it, and what systems are, and what the new technologies are, so that the whole organization is involved and has a stake and also ability to support energy conservation at the town. Okay. The last section is the action plan, and if I could flip forward to the next page, please. This is a set of specific projects that were pulled together by the team to for the next 5 years that will make a significant improvement in your energy consumption picture. They are listed by facility and project type, and they vary from more lighting upgrades to HVAC to controls. I'd like to direct everybody's attention to the top two items. And again, it's creating those guidelines or standards for technology choices and around some of the bigger systems like heating systems and the ice plant equipment, et cetera. And also starting to think about what natural gas reduction strategy you would like to have to integrate into your capital asset management process. And I guess if you want to go to the next page, there's just two full pages of projects. And I think that you're very well positioned to make a significant improvement in both GHGs and energy consumption over the next 5 years. And I think that this shows your corporate responsibility and your focus on helping and making sure the environment is at the forefront. And I think this is a very strong plan. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much, Andrea, for the presentation. Questions or comments from members of council this evening? Councillor McGuire-Blaise.
Thank you through the chair. So I really like this report. It was really eye-opening. The biggest eye-opener that I got was that our twin pads use the most energy out of everything. What's unfortunate to see is that in the recommendations going forward on what we can do to reduce our footprint, there's not much for the twin pad area. Is there not more that we can do to reduce the energy? There is a couple of things, but replace like I see 4. And I don't know that will make a huge difference. It would just be nice to see more being done at the twin pads that means so much.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Andrea. I think our director, Morissat's going to try to answer it. And if he misses anything, you can let him know.
Through you, Mayor Bondi. So the twin pad has had a significant amount of projects on the compressor system over the past 5 years, just based on the life cycle of it. So by the time this plan is done, that's where a lot of the energy usage would be coming from for that facility, would be from the compressor plant. So not seeing any of those major components needing replacement in the next 5 years, it would more likely be part of the next plan. But where we were really trying to focus on were things that we could control within that 5-year period with the funding models and resources that we have. So a good example of the project would be the LED lighting. So right now we have T4 lighting. So every time a bulb goes out, we don't do this right away, but At some point, we have to rent a lift. We have staffing time to go change them. More than likely, ballasts were blown. So there's a lot of things that we have that we're paying for. But if we switch to LEDs, not only does it save in the initial energy costs, but we're also saving on the maintenance costs and the resources that go into that. And they also have longer lifespans. So we're looking at projects like that where we're going to see a bigger impact and a quicker payback period than we would be looking at for quantity of projects, if you would say.
Can I add one other thing that I noticed while working on this, that I understand that you're getting a net zero assessment of the arena completed shortly. And that should have recommendations that then can be woven into this plan if they are appropriate.
Any further questions from members of council? I do have a couple myself, and excuse my ignorance if we did. I just want to know if we had a former plan and how did we do on the targets of that former plan?
Through your Mayor Rondi. So I don't have the exact specifics on that plan, but we did see some improvements from the last plan. It is a legislative plan, so we did have a previous one, and this is a recurring one, an update to the previous plan.
Thank you. And I wonder, this may be for Andrea, is there anywhere where we can see comparators to other municipalities? Like, for example, the Ontario Energy Board has comparators for local hydro companies. I mean, it's great to see what we're doing, but in comparison, how are we doing with other municipalities?
I think that there are a lot of ways of benchmarking, and I guess it depends on also what you'd like to see, whether you'd like to compare the plan and the vision and the priorities with other municipalities, or the actual energy consumption levels and energy intensity levels. So the answer is yes to both of those. They are a bit different, and I can work with Jake to create some benchmarking so that you can see how your largest buildings are doing against other similar facilities in Ontario.
You, Director Drusevich.
Through the chair, just to add on to that, each year we are required to report our energy usage through the broader public sector reporting tool. And that is public, and it has comparators on that anyone can go and check out.
And my
Yes,
last comment, oh, sorry.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
My last comment is potentially going into budget, just looking to see, I know in past budgets, we've seen dollar savings from, for example, LED streetlights, just looking to see how we see that there could be operational savings in this. I know it's going to cost money too, but we talked about the, just for the streetlights, for example, how much we were saving. So that's something I just want to see if we can have more information potentially in budget. Anything else from members of council? Okay, looking for a mover and a seconder that the presentation by Andrea Dwight to be received. Councillor Hammond, Councillor Mady, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Moving on to our next delegate, we have Brittany Colnut. So Brittany, welcome to the delegation podium. And yeah, and once you get up there and you're ready, just press the mic and you have your time with council. Thank you.
Brittany Colnut. I was here about a year ago about my concern about the lots next to me that you guys plan on building on. I know myself and everyone around me were told that this was supposed to be designated as parkland green space, especially with the new housings that are all going up as well. And then now we're being told that now we have three potential lots being built, which would affect me big time. Because as when I built, I was told that I was paying a premium due to the fact that I would have green land next to me. And that's why my lot was more expensive. I had choices at other lots, which I chose not to, expecting not to have any neighbors next to me, having wide open space. I even called the town as well. They had told me, yes, as designated as parkland. They did have plans on building another kids park in order to support the new housing that are going in, especially because I know in one of the reports that you guys had mentioned that it's sufficient enough that bridge, I call it Optimus Big Hill Park, but that park was big enough to support the new housing, but to tell you honest truth, that park is feeding everyone around us, north and south, east and west. Two big subdivisions and now all these new housings that are going in. The equipment is often wrecked or you guys have to fix it because there's tons of kids going there and it's not enough equipment for the kids that are in that area. I know last time when we were here, Mayor Bondi, before she was mayor, she had mentioned maybe adding trees and frisbee or giving more green space in order for kids to have more space to, an area to play and just, more green space. So, and then everyone around us is actually very concerned about this because when they bought or when they built, they were told the same thing, that there is only supposed to be green space and parkland. There are some concerns about maybe the drainage as well from houses that behind them. Like what are the plans for that if you do plan on building? So those are my concerns. And I guess I just want to bring it up because I know everyone around us, when I've talked to them, everyone has been quite upset due to the fact that we were told one thing and now we might have 3 new housing. And also for my resale value as well in the future. Like that's one of the things when I bought this land, knowing the fact that I was maybe going to have a park next to me and wide open space. So that's everything.
Thank you, Ms. Colnut. Any questions or comments from members of council to our delegate? Okay, seeing none at this point, I need a motion to receive the presentation.
Add a couple of things. I was also wondering.
I will have to seek council approval as you're not registered.
Oh, I thought.
No. Okay, I need direction from Councilor Verbeek and state your full name. Okay, moved by Councilor Verbeek, supported by Councilor McGuire Blaze. All in favor of allowing? All right, thank you. Go ahead.
Be done underhandedly, like the declared surplus. We were supposed to, last year, we were told that there would be a plan put out and everyone would be invited to it. So if we had any questions at that time, we could ask. We never heard anything about that. When I severed my lot at home, I had to put a sign out saying, this is my plan. And all our neighbors got to see that so they could, come in and complain or make an issue of it. None of that was done here. Last year, the dates that Brittany's telling me now that this was declared surplus was prior to last year's meeting. And none of that was that, like last, well, it depends on the rec department this year. So like, what's going on here? Like it was declared before and last year you already knew and you didn't tell us that. So like these people were promised, Brittany paid extra for her property. And now you guys aren't living up to what you initially promised. That was supposed to be open land. And I know most of the counselors that are here were there when that initial thing went on because the counselors don't change that often. But it just doesn't, it seems like you're doing everything under the table. We're not being apprised of it. The neighbors didn't know anything. Brittany had to go tell the neighbors about the meeting tonight. No one knew anything about it. Well, some of them knew about it, but they were concerned. Like this is when they built their house, said, this is property is going to be here for you, for your kids, for the future, for the play. And that park is used quite a bit. What are the maintenance costs? What do you say it's been turned down because of maintenance? What is the maintenance cost to cut the grass? Like there's nothing on there but grass. You cut the grass every 2 weeks. That can't be a big expense. So why was it declared surplus? We don't know why it was declared surplus. That park behind it was there when you accepted that land from the developer. If you accepted it from the developer, why are you not giving it back to the developer now saying we've changed our mind? We don't want it as open land. Like, why do you guys get the option of developing it and getting a profit off it when he couldn't do it? He had to give it to you because that's what you said he had to do. And it would be parkland. So stories are changing around here. So what is the status of now? Is it surplus?
Okay, if you are done, then I will have our administration answer your questions. So we have some questions. One is, how come severance signs didn't go up? And the Parks and Rec master plan, how we did some public consultation on that. And I think you heard some of the other ones. Director Morissette?
Through your Mayor Bondi, so the Parks and Rec master plan, we did have an open house. It was in Harrow. We also had a lot of media, social media for people to provide public feedback on the plan. We also had in December last year, residents were invited to come to council to adopt the plan when it was presented to them. So we did have a special meeting presenting the community services master plan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to the delegate, to answer your question in regards to a severance and the process for creating the lots here. So because the lands are municipally owned, the town is not required under the Planning Act to go through the typical severance process. Instead, council can create the lots through a reference plan. And instead of going through that typical notification through a severance, they would be required to proceed through a surplus bylaw and the notification requirements under the surplus bylaw. What we did was we went above and beyond what was required under the surplus bylaw and notified, similar to what a severance would look like, we notified property owners within 60 meters of the subject property. So we did a hybrid of the both, only requiring technically just the surplus process.
Just confirm that we both put a newspaper ad in the Essex Free Press declaring surplus property, and we sent out letters to neighboring residents.
Director Morissette?
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. And this process has been going on for a number of years. So I'll start off with that. In 2018, council directed administration to proceed with the surplus process for the lands adjacent to Bridlewood Park. So just from my experience, based on our master plans, when we have a development within a certain radius of a park, so we have 500 meters. So if there's no park within that 500 meters, then we would typically take the parkland. But in this case, parkland was taken, and it, in my opinion, it probably shouldn't have been, because we already have that parkland there, which would have serviced that development within that 500-meter space. So it is a bit unique that we would have seen this scenario, a parcel added onto an existing park. So during that time, administration received land surveys and the installation of site services for the 3 lots. This took place during the Bryant Avenue reconstruction. In July of 2022, the proceeds from the lands were approved by council to fund the CCRF grant that the town received for the sports fields, with the additional surplus going into Parkland Reserve. In December 2023, council directed administration to proceed with the surplus process. That and the surplus proceeds from the land will be placed in the Parkland Reserves to fund other park projects, such as the new sports fields. Administration has brought the final bylaw forward for council's consideration to surplus the property. If the bylaw receives 2 readings tonight and eventually a 3rd reading, administration will work with a realtor to get the properties on the market. And a couple members of council did ask about parkland properties that we have in the town of Essex. So you can see, if we can get the map pulled up of the facilities within Ward 1. So these are the park properties that we do have within the Ward 1 boundaries. No, not that one. That's Harrow. Up to the top page. No, it was in that document. Just scroll up to the very top. So this is the parkland properties. So the one property that's not listed on here because it was recently acquired is the Essex Town Center, which is near the new Home Hardware Canadian Tire area. So we do have that one that needs to be added to the map as well. So in the recently approved Community Services Master Plan, the minimum target levels for parkland is 2.5 hectares per 1,000 people. We currently sit at 2.78 hectares. And if we surplus this property, we'd reduce it by 2.24 hectares, bringing us to 2.54 hectares per 1,000 people, which is still above our minimum target level. And that also doesn't include Essex Town Center.
Thank you, Director Morissette. One thing that for people watching as well, just because it is hard to notify everybody, you can subscribe on the Town of Essex and you can hit subscribe to our agendas. And everybody that wishes can get our agendas. And I did post it on my Facebook too, even though it's a controversial topic. I post things that are controversial and not to make sure that as many people as I can reach. Questions from council members? Or questions to the delegate? Councillor Hammond?
Worship, I was just wondering, how long has this subdivision been here with this parkland now? How long has it been? Uh-oh, excuse me.
Sorry there, just step up to the,
Over time, in 2014, and it was declared parkland prior to that, with the other houses that were built before me.
So my question is, my question is administration, how long has this been a subdivision in the town of Essex?
Chadwick is looking on some more details. Do you have an answer to that question? Or sorry, Councillor McGuire Blaze.
Through the chair. That's a difficult question to answer because it was kind of done in 3 phases. One end is like original to the town. I'd say 60, 70, I don't know how long those houses have been there. I used to live along that park as well. And my house is about 25, 30 years old. And now we're talking about a brand new subdivision, a third section of it done 10 years ago. So it's a really well-established neighborhood, done in kind of 3 phases that wrap around this park. So.
McGuire Blaze, Councillor Hammond.
My thing is, like, how long has this park been designated a parkland for this subdivision? Like,
Through the chair, it's been 10 years. I moved onto, it's 10 years because it was a field. 10 years ago, it was a field. Then they developed the road and they created these 3 lots became parkland 10 years ago.
Anything further, Councillor Hammond?
we have bylaws that stipulate when a developer makes a subdivision, he has to designate so much parkland. I'm just trying to establish when that agreement was made with the town.
We're looking at that. Councillor Guerin?
Thanks, through the mayor. Yes, I've lived over in that area forever, since the mid-70s, and it is 3 different developments. At one time, it used to be a family-owned farmer's field. There was a few houses on Hanlon Street. I'm sure there was designated agriculture, that property, and it's not unusual that sometimes the destination of what a property is can change over time. I'm sure the people that lived on Hanlon back onto that field were probably not crazy when it was sold and developed on. Some of the very homes that you're living in now are some of them homes that were probably disputed back then too. It is just the way things go sometimes. As far as the 3 pieces of property there, so they were never originally part of the Bridlewood Parkland, I don't believe. I think those were added when they developed the Jacana development, right? And it also wasn't part of it when they built the section that I believe you used to live in. I believe that was just so. And then sometimes you designate the parkland and you find over time you already had parkland there and you can surplus the property. 2-3 blocks up the road, we got a gigantic piece of parkland property at the arena fairgrounds. So just trying to give a little bit of light on that.
Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. Just some clarification for me. The resident speaking tonight said they purchased this property and they were given insurances by the developer that this land wouldn't be developed beside them, that it would remain parkland property. At that time, the town didn't own that property that they bought, obviously. So would the town have given that assurances to the developer at any time? I'm just curious if this is something out of the norm that we would have, because they're claiming that they were given that assurance by the town as well. So I'm just wondering if the town, anybody on town staff has an answer to that for us so that we can wrap our heads around what we're being told here.
Question, Deputy Mayor, our CAO suite?
To you, Deputy Mayor Shepley, I think your administration, I don't think anybody's here when this happened with Jacana, but to answer your questions, whenever there's any parkland, right, you have the choice to take the parkland or cash in lieu. So in this case, council now the day took to go with the parkland, that small area which is adjacent to Bridlewood Park. So I'm not sure if that answers what you're looking for.
Yeah, it kind of does. I mean, I understand the cash in lieu in the parkland and how that works. Maybe all the residents aren't aware of how that works. But when they were given assurances by the developer or whoever they bought the property from, that would have been an assurance by them, not something that was related from the town to them. So I'm just wondering where they would get that information that the town gave them that assurance that we would never deem this surplus land, because we inevitably could deem any property surplus land as it becomes available. So I'm just wondering where they got that assurance from.
Colnett?
So before we built, because I was told that this lot was actually $5,000 more than the other lots around there, due to the fact that because next to me will be parkland. And they said, the developer said that the town said that they had to have a certain amount as parkland, and that's what you guys deemed as parkland. So myself, I called, and the town did say that within the next 5 years, they do plan on building another little kids park. And then as well, my mother called a year later because we heard talk about you guys might be selling or things like that. We called and they reassured us at that time again. So probably 2000, was I built in 2014? So 2015, close to 2016, we were told again, no, that's parkland. We do plan on building a kids park, just not in the next few years.
Anything further, Deputy Mayor? Okay, Councillor Garin.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. So those timelines fall within some administration that would have been here. I believe our CAO would have been Parks and Rec. Did we have a plan for those three pieces to build Tot Park or kids playgrounds on it at any time? Do you recall?
My role as Director of Community Services, when I came back, nothing was in place prior. And during my term, there was no plans to develop that with any active amenities, right? It was always considered like a passive park.
So further that then, yeah, and I don't think it's the norm of administration to just because a property is designated as whatever, agriculture, playground, whatever, it's not our role, I believe, to tell someone who wants to buy a lot that you're okay, there's never going to be anything there but what it's designated for. I don't think that's what our policy would be at town. I could see possibly a realtor for their own gains, maybe saying it's backed onto parkland, it'll probably always be parkland, you're good to go. I could maybe see that, but since I've been here in the 2 terms I've been here, I don't think that's the norm of administration to tell somebody who wants to buy a piece of property, yeah, this is always going to be this and it's never going to be changed. And if it is, then I would strongly recommend we do not do that.
Councillor Garin, I've been at this table since 2010, but until this term, I was the Harrow rep, so I might have not have been, as savvy on Ward 1 issues, but I don't remember this location being talked about as like a kid park or a top park. I remember us talking about the top park being by the daycare because the daycare was right there, like up here, and they could go back and forth from the daycare. That's what I recall. Right now, though, I am going to ask for a motion that we receive the delegates. Looking for a motion that we receive the delegate, Brittany Colnett and Richard Colnett. Moved by Councillor Garin, supported by Councillor Mady. All in favor of receiving the delegate? And that is carried. So we do have the bylaw following on our agenda. So you can have a seat. There is no unfinished business. Reports from administration, community services, our energy conservation and demand management plan. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the community services report be received for information. And if there's any further questions, we can ask that as well. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Verbeek. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried unanimously. Planning 2024-33 amendment to subdivision agreement for 80 Maidstone Avenue West. And this is in Essex Center Ward 1. That planning report be received in that bylaw 2401, being a bylaw to enter into a subdivision agreement for residential development known as 80 Maidstone Avenue West, be read a first, second, third time, finally passed on November 18th, needing a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Verbeek, supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions to this? Director Chadwick is here. If so, and then we have the bylaw as well. All in favor? And that is carried. Planning 10-3, Recreation and Culture, update on recreational and culture programs, recommended action that the report be received. But first, we will go to our manager, Miss Cakebread, and her sidekick, Zach, is here. Sorry, Zach, I forgot your last name.
Hello.
Okay, welcome. It's not, okay, yeah, it is here. Okay, it's not highlighted. That's why I only read what's highlighted. Okay, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just some key points in there. Again, we're pointing out a lot of the positives in our recreation and culture and the programs and activities we run, especially through the Essex Recreation Complex. Significant growth in youth or use over the years for the past 26 years that we've been open. It's a very busy facility. We operate pretty much 7 days a week, closing for just a couple holidays through the year. Can see, what's trackable in terms of use, and what we know is at least 50,000 people through our doors. That doesn't capture the people that come in with them who are watching, viewing, participating. And that's everything from the aquatics and use there over to the gym where we have rentals 7 days a week. Activities are very large and continuing to grow. Day camp program in the summer, which is just really extensively grown to the point that we've now had to splinter it. So we have 2 campuses where we're running day camp programs in the summer. We've moved one group over to the Maydale Community Center because we can no longer take them in the capacity. Like I said, we are there 7 days a week. We are there all year long. We get a lot of good use. We have a lot of community users that are coming in for both programs and rentals. And then when you look at the overall growth of our programs at the rest of our communities, we're basically programming out of 7 different locations throughout the year, including, learn to skate programs at the arena, sport activity art programs that are running out of Harrow, both at the arena and out of St. Anthony's School. We continue to struggle with the ongoing registration and not canceling programs in Harrow. We've seen a little uptick. And then holding off, we have seen just absolutely overwhelming significant growth in the use of the Maydale Community Center. To the point right now, our struggle is always going with quantity over quality. And, as much as we would like to continue to grow and keep growing those programs, we have to make sure that we're able to maintain them in a quality level that includes not only just bringing in staff, but training them, mentoring them, and ongoing evaluation of those programs that continues. It isn't a one-time thing. It's a non-stop ongoing that comes from our brand new instructors of programs and facility staff to, if they've been with us 3 or 4 years, we still have those same things that have to be in place to maintain the quality and levels of the programs that we operate. So we think we've done a pretty good job in making use of the facilities that we have. We know that we're running good programs. We've continued to grow. Another highlight is our birthday party programs, really doing as many parties that we're doing every year. There's some weekends where we have 5, 6, or 7 birthday parties in a weekend. And that's on top of the regular programming that's occurring. Those occur at pretty much all of our facilities, primarily at the Maydale Community Center as our key area. The Essex Recreation Complex, where we are doing our aquatic birthday parties that are quite well used. But we've also had people come to us and say, can you do a party in McGregor? Sure, we can do it there. Can you do one in Harrow? Yep, we can do one there. Depending on the type, right? We look at the ways to provide those opportunities and with the resources that we have available to us. So we're really trying to maintain that service level and providing programs as well as changing our programs. often, right? We try and stay current with those core programs that are always going to run, but always looking for new and interesting and engaging programs for people, as well as tying them into our recreation programs and our ongoing day camp activities as well. So it's a constant change and a constant growth. And, right now our biggest thing is not getting in over our head so that we aren't able to offer that top level program. So, yeah.
Questions, comments from members of council? Counselor Garen.
Thanks to you, Mayor. To Ms. Cakebread, nice seeing you again, twice in one day. The disconnect on programming in Harrow, or the less memberships and programming, Phil, is it strictly, you think, population difference or the surrounding areas? What do you think is impacting why Essex is getting so much interest in the programming and Harrow's not getting as much?
Through you, Your Worship, I think it is a little bit of location. When you look at Essex and you draw the circle, we're really capturing 5 different municipalities at this one center. We are the hub of the county in this center. So we are drawing on populations from all around us. So when you get out to Harrow, there is a shrinkage in the number of people that are physically in that area. So we try and, we can't program the same thing at Essex, McGregor, Harrow, and Colchester. That's not realistic. So we try and can we offer it here for those areas? So will people from McGregor and Colchester come into Harrow for a program, or will they go to McGregor, do that drive? So it is a lot to do with population size. And we also know that as we start seeing that population grow, we're going to probably see a little more engagement, but not at the rate that we're doing here in terms of who we're pulling in. To get to Essex from areas of Lakeshore, Maidstone, Kingsville, Amherstburg is sometimes easier for us. So we see some, but it's not quite at the pace yet.
Mayor, and then follow up to that. And do we have a means of tracking where the people are coming from when they are in the programs, like registered in the programs? Like, we know that a person that books the time, let's say a rental, we would have an address that would be tracked back if they're a resident of Essex or an outside community. But on the people that are participating, do we know if it's 50-50, like our residents of Essex and 50% outside of Essex, or do we know how to track that?
Through Your Worship. As a matter of fact, we recently did do a tracking on that. We know that in our recreation programs, just over 50% are non-residents that are coming into our facilities and our programs. We know where they're coming from exactly by postal code. So we did run the reports and look at, we know we have a lot of people from Kingsville that are coming in, Cottam that are coming. And again, when you look at the imbalance between what programs are being offered here by our municipality and what's being offered, that's where we're seeing a lot of our growth. So you'll see a lot of people from the Woodsley area coming into Essex versus going to, Lakeshore for their programming. So we can tell you exactly, as long as people are being honest about their postal codes, we can tell you exactly where everybody's coming from. But we know as much as there's a high level of non-residents using our facility, we know they're coming to us as a result of what's lacking or that the quality levels that we're offering are just better.
Squire Blaze.
Thank you through the chair. So I love our programming. I think Essex has the best programming, and that speaks volumes to you. I'm wondering, just because we do have 50, let's just call a split 50-50, if we ever looked into doing giving the resident, like, increasing rates for outside of Essex. So for ratepayers, they would have a certain rate, and then outside of Essex would have a different rate, kind of like the city of Windsor does with Adventure Bay. So if you go to Adventure Bay and you're a resident of the city of Windsor, you pay your taxes to the city of Windsor, you get a special rate. And if you're outside of Windsor, it's a different rate. Have we ever thought of doing that to increase our revenues in the recreation facilities?
Through Your Worship. I think from the very beginning, we recognize that it's very hard to track and implement. I know that in some municipalities, they've done this and they spend more time confirming addresses because there's no way to really truly vet where people are coming from unless they're coming into your facility and providing you with identification showing. Most people are creating their accounts online with any address in. So for us to follow up, track, I think it's also a deterrent to people. I think it turns people off. And the overall increase in revenue, I think wouldn't be significant enough because I think we would see people not pay the extra money to come for that. And just, I think administratively, in terms of the resources that we have to vet it and confirm it and keep on top of it, I don't know if I have seen the benefit in the years that we've been doing this. And I think from the very beginning, we pulled away from it.
Counselor Verbeek, then Counselor Hammond.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi, and through you. I think there's also a little bit of an economic spin-off as well. So I know just my family, when we go out to swimming lessons, then we tend to go to one of the local bakeries and get some stuff there. So I think when we're drawing people into town, we might get to see some spin-off effects to some of the local businesses that may be open, where they might stop in for dinner or treats or something like that. So it may, we may, further to Manager Cape-Bread, we may see some increased revenues if we were to do that, but it may not be worth it once we take those factors into consideration. And if it's drawing people in from the outside, it could have a positive effect on the businesses.
Verbeek.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just want to take the opportunity while you two are in the room to share with you and to pass on to your staff. I know several of the young people that work in your programming. The last year, I've had a few family members join your team. They absolutely love working with your group. They're doing well and they're thriving and they're growing. I've been involved with your most of the programs we offer at different times over the years through 8 of my grandchildren and some of my fosters are the swimming programs, the dance programs, the gymnastics, the badminton, the music, and I've never been disappointed in any of the instructors. They're engaged. Their training shows through. And it's just, like I say, I get nothing but positive from the young people that work with you. And I see it with my grandchildren. And just to elaborate a little bit, I love where you were going there, Councillor McGuire Blaze, about as we're looking to generate a little more revenue, but I have to support what Director Morris said. At least one of my families, my daughter's family with 4 children that are in our programs almost every session, one or the other. They're coming from Lakeshore, which is far closer to them, to do our programs here at the Maydell and at the high school. And almost always there's other revenue generated through supporting our businesses and shopping in our shops because they're here 1 or 2 nights a week for our programming. So I get where you were going with that, but so thank you to you and your staff.
Verbeek, Counselor Hammond.
Yes, thank you through you, Your Worship. I just wanted to add to Councilor McGuire Blaze's suggestion for a surcharge for non-residents. Essex has employed that tactic before, and I can tell you that it's seen by non-residents as a deterrent, and it only has a negative effect. That's my experience in the past regarding that. And Cynthia, thank you very much for your job well done there at the Rec Center. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Shepley, then Counselor Mady.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I just wanted to thank the Ms. Cakebread for all the work she does. The programs we offer do bring people from outside the community. And to follow up on what Director Morris said, we definitely do see, as a business owner in Ward 1, we definitely do see people from Woodsley, from Bell River, from Harrow, or well, Harrow's ours, but Cottam, everywhere in the area that do come in, they do stop and buy in our community because of this. So it's a fantastic thing that we're doing, and it does help all the local businesses. Thank you.
Counselor Mady is having a technical difficulty. Has it worked yet tonight? Uh-oh. Okay. Go be a delegate. No.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you, and worship. The level of programming in Essex is wonderful. I haven't heard a complaint. Being down in Ward 3, Ward 4, the only complaints that I hear is that they would love to have some of these programs. So I would say the opposite to what Councillor McGuire Blaze and Councillor Hammond said, that I would like to see people that live in Essex, that live far away from here, maybe get a little bit of a reduction to come here. Because I could tell you that we're losing residents to Amherstburg because it's a much shorter drive than driving all the way into Essex. Maybe if we give them a couple dollars for gas, they'd stay in Essex.
We still have some mic situations to figure out. We will work on that. I also want to point out that we have a cost sharing agreement, a good cost sharing agreement that we hope to continue with the Greater Essex County District School Board. And it's imperative to the county that this program takes place because we had 25 local schools, which is close to 900 participants in the 2023-2024 school year. And it's teaching kids how to survive if they fall in the water. So our staff, our program, our facilities is helping kids learn those really important skills. So we really need the Greater Essex County District School Board to remain a good partner. Okay, motion to receive the report. Moved by Councillor Guerin, supported by Councillor McGuire Blaze. Oh, you guys want to speak? Yay. Okay. Youth Council Member Foster, and then did you want to? Okay.
I'd just like to say, I think that it should just be same for everyone, no matter where they live. I think that giving a special discount to someone who lives in Essex or outside of Essex, I don't think that really encourages people to come from everywhere. I think if you keep it even, I think everyone would be more happy. Because if I saw, as someone who lives in Essex, someone from outside of Essex getting a discount on programs that I could get elsewhere, why wouldn't I just go elsewhere if it's going to cost me less, right? And same thing if you're finding discounts from other places. I just think it should just be equal. That's my opinion.
For your youth council member perspective. Okay, all in favor? And that is carried. 10.4 environmental services. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the environmental services report be received and that council award the 2024 engineering services for various water mains to RC Spencer Associates in the amount of $250,000, and that council approve the additional funding of $95,000 above the approved 2024 capital budget of $250,000 for 2024 engineering services for various water main projects from the town's water reserve. We'll get a mover and a seconder, and then Director Gerard can speak. Moved by Councillor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councillor Allard. Director Gerard.
Mayor Bondi, and through you. So this report is to award the detailed design of various water main projects throughout the town. As part of the 5-year capital plan that was presented to council on November 13th, it was identified that critical water main projects needed to be addressed. Although council has not approved the 5-year plan in principle, these water mains require replacement or in poor to very poor condition. As indicated in the report, the project requires council approval for an over expenditure of the project budget of $95,000 to complete geotechnical investigations, which would be funded through the town's water reserve. These projects were also included in the water and wastewater rate study, and therefore approval of these projects would have no impact to wastewater and water rates. Thank you.
To our director. I think it's great. I don't know if I've seen this before, but I think it's great that we're being progressive and getting all of these engineered. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Capital Works and Asset Management, Infrastructure Services, Electric Vehicle 6-month update, needing a mover and a seconder that the Capital Works and Asset Management report be received for information, and then we'll go to David Macbeth. Mover and a seconder, moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor McGuire Blaze and Mr. Macbeth, our Manager of Capital Works.
Mayor Bondi through the chair. So this year, Infrastructure Services acquired an electric vehicle as the first EV in the town's fleet as part of the pilot program for developing an EV fleet plan for council's strategic action plan number 3.2. Through 6 months, the EV has been a success, saving the town approximately $828 while we've been town's charging station at Essex Arena. These savings of the 828 is based on using a comparable gas-powered vehicle of the same size, and then based off of the average fuel use and average fuel prices over that same time. We did recently just install a 240-volt plug on the outside of the town hall building, and that's expected to increase our savings even more because it at a lower energy rate, and an expected full year would approximately save the town $3,950 projected out for a calendar year. And therefore, over the 10-year lifespan of the vehicle, an EV should save the town nearly $40,000. But obviously that will be based on any electricity rates and gas rates over that period of time. So overall, based on the higher cost to purchase the EV, it would take approximately 4 years and 1 month to recoup the overage for the upfront purchase price of getting the EV over a gas-powered vehicle. Thank you.
To Mr. Macbeth. Councillor McGuire, please.
Thank you, through the chair. Mr. Macbeth, can you give us a price including the overage of the cost? So in 10 years, we're going to save $40,000, but we're also overspending on the vehicle initially. So we're not really saving $40,000. How much are we saving after we pay the difference between a fueled vehicle and an electric vehicle?
Here, so a comparable vehicle was approximately, or the EV was approximately $16,000 more expensive than a comparable gas vehicle. So that's why I was able to equate the savings per year and get it to the 4 year and 1 month.
Mic off. So through the chair, so we're saving approximately $24,000 in 10 years after we pay the difference of the EV vehicle. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Shepley, then Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question through you. While we're paying more for the vehicle up front, and there is a savings eventually, I'm wondering if the life cycle, or do we know on that vehicle, is it the same as a gas-powered vehicle, or does that diminish? Is that the same? And then if we compared it to a diesel vehicle, I'm just wondering if they've done that comparison, because if we're going to replace the vehicle the same amount of time, are we going to actually realize that savings? I don't know how many vehicles we keep past 10 years in town.
Yeah. So per our town's asset management plan, the 10-year life cycle is the expected time that we keep all vehicles. Obviously, if the vehicle has problems, it could be traded out before then, but you don't keep a vehicle longer than that time, because that's kind of, as you've seen in many figures in our presentations, that sweet spot where it's maintenance starts to become too much. As to whether or not these vehicles will last 10 years, that's part of the pilot. Obviously, we're not going to be, your plan requires us to report back to council by 2027, so we won't know that for sure, but it would be a slow process replacing them, and we'd have more information as we move forward. So both gas and EVs are going to have the same type of parts that are going to break down, and say it's brakes, tires, and whatnot. So we didn't look at maintenance costs as part of this. It's just strictly saving costs based off of gas to electricity at this point. There could be additional savings or additional expenses, and we'll try to report on that in 2027 when we have a few years on this vehicle. Thank you.
And then Councillor Mady.
Wish a couple of questions. First, when it comes to replacing our fleet of trucks, how will these numbers associate? Because the truck separation in prices is quite a big difference, I would assume, and mileage as well. So what kind of savings are you anticipating once we start swapping our truck fleet?
Chair. So As part of the upcoming budget, we are looking to continue on with this pilot program. There is one truck plan for community services, and we are recommending to try out an EV to see how it works operationally before we would say whether or not we change any of those. And so from there, we would once again monitor the vehicle, and the reason we're requesting it in this upcoming year, so we get at least 1 year use out of the vehicle by the time we acquire it, to try and have some feedback on it and to know what challenges that we face, potentially replacing out what I'll call workforce trucks, as opposed to just vehicles that are moving people either to or from jobs, and along those lines. So, thank you.
Another question now, the other added expense as far as the charging stations and stuff like that, and I'm sure we're gonna find out how much maintenance on these stations are gonna be too. Is that also worked out in your costs as far as our savings, these charging stations, and obviously they'll have to be replaced as well over the years, I would imagine?
So, like I said, it was, this report is strictly about just the savings electrical to gas, not about any type of upfront costs on charging stations. Once again, like I mentioned in my presentation at the start, we just put a 240 volt plug in. It does not require a charging station as long as we can get vehicles under a proper charging station. If you, charging schedule. So if you plug in the vehicle at the end of the workday, it has usually 8 hours where it could sit there, charge up the vehicle full, and you'd have a full day's use out of it. You also may not be driving a full on the charge, so you may not need to charge it every day. You don't have to necessarily use the charging stations, being that it's at the next truck that we're proposing. If it's there, is that community service, they have the charging station. It's an option, but you can also just wire a 240 volt plug and it can work for the night. So you don't have to have additional costs of buying charging stations.
Have Counselor Mady and then Director Gerard and then Counselor Allard.
Thank you, and through your worship. I think it's a great pilot program. I love seeing facts come in on these, and the data shows that more and more times over, fleets that change over to electric are saving lots of money. As we go forward with this, you were talking about maintenance costs. So by 2027, we'll actually be able to compare maintenance costs too between a normal vehicle and an electric one.
Through the chair, we'll look to see if we can report on what they'll be. It depends of when that will have any as part of it. A lot of these newer vehicles have a lot of reporting. I get monthly updates on my inbox of how the EV vehicle that we have is doing. So it hasn't required any maintenance through its first 6 months. And we'll get updates as to when usually it has that. But we will also probably have to do some research as to other municipalities and if they have reporting on their fleets in order to provide a proper report in 2020.
Audie, through you. So just to elaborate on Mr. Macbeth's comments. So those are really great questions the council are asking. This is very, very short in our window of a trial, right? So we wanted to provide council with a 6-month update to just give you an idea of what we're experiencing, because coming into the 2025 budget, as Mr. Macbeth mentioned, we want to do another trial. The key to the whole thing really is that we need to look at long-term sustainability as well, right? So we were exploring different size of vehicles. So right now we've looked at small, mid-sized vehicles that would function well for certain departments and certain employees within the town for their job functions. So, you know, our capital works infrastructure inspector has the ability to use a smaller vehicle, doesn't find himself off-road needing 4-wheel drive as often. So that would work for his job classification. However, there's many vehicles across many multitudes of departments. So we need to explore more trials. We need to assess the maintenance, the charging stations. All these things will have to come out of a long-term fleet plan, which we intend to bring in 2027 as part of our strategic plan. We also have to recognize that not every vehicle should be electrified. So we've looked at the mid-size vehicle now. We're looking at a pickup truck potentially for its use within the organization. But, you know, these technologies also expand into heavy equipment, even fire trucks come fully electric, but they may not be practical for the town of Essex. So we'd like to explore them. We're still doing a lot of research, But the long-term plan is to iron out a lot of these details over the next couple of years to develop an actual fleet plan with recommendations that'll speak to all of those different things. And that may be even explored beyond just looking at full electric. It may be looking at a hybrid vehicle or just staying with a gas-powered vehicle and equipment too. So we're going to explore all those options over the next several years, but we just wanted to kind of give council an update into that short-term cost savings that we've seen.
Thank you. Through the chair. Thank you. Through the chair. I was just wondering, is there any government kickbacks from higher up government?
So on the purchase price of the vehicle, we got a $5,000 rebate for purchasing the vehicle. There's no other grants that we have at this time. We have applied for charging station grants to try and have that type of infrastructure, but we were unsuccessful on our attempt for that.
We do have a mover on the table. Counselor Hammond, last quick comment.
Well, give me an idea, just what does what kind of service schedule do these EV have? Obviously, there's no oil changes or anything like that, or is there?
No, there's no oil changes, but they would be doing essentially just tire rotations and just probably as a general overview of the vehicle, just to make sure the brakes and that are working, stuff like that.
The Deputy Mayor and Councilor McGuire-Blaze, all in favor? That carried. Capital Works and Asset Management Tree Planting Request Program Update. Needing a mover and a seconder that the Capital Works and Asset Management Plan report be received, and then we can speak to it. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councilor Hammond and Director Gerard or Mr. Macbeth. You speak to it.
Through the chair. So administration wanted to provide an update on the tree planting request program. So after council's approval on the September 3rd council meeting for the creation of the program, Infrastructure Services, with great assistance from Mark Totola, the manager of strategic communications, created a webpage and an application form for the program for residents to apply, to request a tree, and to gauge interest from the community. A social media post was sent out on Monday, October 28th, sharing the website and asking them to sign in if they wanted to get a tree. And within 1 week, we had 50 tree requests come in from our residents. And based on the expected 10 trees per year, it would, with the funding that was being provided, it would take about 5 years just to go to that first wave of requests that we have. Thank you.
Councilor Hammond.
I'm just wondering if there's any area in there for people who want to put their own trees in, and subsequently ones that put their own trees in without realizing that they have a process to go through. Is there any kind of room or leverage for that? Like, do we have to wait 5 years to get a tree put in, or can we put it in by ourselves with the proper, under, the town scrutiny? Sorry, Mayor.
So through the chair, so residents could apply to put their own tree in. They would need a permit to work in our right of way, although that potentially could be waived. I'm not sure on that, but it can be done, or they can plant it on their own private property if they want one in their front yard.
Any further comments? All in favor? Thank you for that great work. That is carried. Capital Works and Asset Management Sidewalk Patio Bylaw Amendment. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the Capital Works and Asset Management report be received, in that bylaw 2393 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2160 for the installation of sidewalk patios in the town of Essex be read a first, second, and a third time and finally passed on November 18th, 2024. Needing a mover and a seconder, and then we'll have Councilor Verbeek, Councilor McGuire-Blaze, and Mr. Macbeth.
Through the chair. So back on April 18th, administration brought forward a sidewalk patio policy to council, and ultimately council rejected that policy, and administration went back to the drawing board and decided our best option would likely be to amend the existing sidewalk patio bylaw as opposed to creating a new patio policy. So at the September 3rd council meeting, administration brought a new report to council with the recommendations to direct administration to revise the bylaw based on the following changes, which were the adoption of the guidelines from the Ontario Traffic Council restaurant patio guidelines within the right-of-way. Also to have any traffic control measures that are required, those measures are the responsibility of the patio owner or person requesting the application, and they would be installed by our operations department at no additional expense to the applicant. Where a pedestrian walkway, a boardwalk over parking spaces will be required, the applicant would be required to pay for it, but it would be constructed once again by our operations department at no expense to them beyond the material cost. And then to revise the minimum clear passage from 1.8 meters to 1.8 meters from 1.5 meters per the OTC guidelines, and then giving the authority to close parking spaces in the town of Essex for the purpose of sidewalk patios to the Director of Infrastructure Services or their delegate, and to revise the start date of the patio season from March 1st to May 1st due to winter control operations. Those were the changes that we were proposing and have been proposed within the revised bylaw and that we're seeking council's approval tonight. Thank you.
Questions and comments from members of council? I also wonder if there's a place on our website where we can put this after we have it so we can direct business owners to go to. I don't know, on our economic development website. I'm not sure, but just any questions? Councillor Garin.
Thank you, through the mayor. Yeah, I got a couple of questions. Does administration or maybe even BIA, maybe Councilor Blaze can even answer some of this question too? Have we had any conversations with the businesses, restaurants, licensed establishments regarding this and what their thoughts are on it? I'm really anxious to hear if we've had any feedback from them on these changes or if they're aware of them.
Through the chair. So when the initial bylaw came to the table, almost every restaurant in Essex Center from the BIA reached out and was opposed to the initial one. With this one, we're not really changing a heck of a lot that's not really legislated by, like, we have to follow some of these guidelines and we don't really get a say. So everyone's been happy with what's being proposed. They like being able to, if we need to go into the street, take up parking space if they have to. And they're much happier with this version than they were in April. So I think that our businesses are going to be happy with this. I haven't heard any negative. I did bring it back to the BIA and they did send it out to their members. When this came back, when we first had the revision of it, I can't remember when it came back just like a month ago, we spoke about it. September. And we did send it out to the members and I haven't heard any feedback regarding the new bylaw before us today. So I think that our businesses are content.
Okay, through Mayor, further that then. Okay, I'm just wondering if the bylaw is it'll be a bylaw in place, which is great, but I'm just wondering if it's still going to be out of the costs. Like some of these businesses, if they're going to be afford the cost. Do we have any idea, since we are going to be the ones, the town buying whatever they need to put out front there, we're going to be buying it and they're going to be paying the full cost of it. Do we know what the average cost is going to be for a one parking lot patio? On average, is it $1,000 for the material? Is it $5,000 for the material? And what happens to that material when and if the business decides they don't want to do it anymore? We take it down and they have to store it somewhere because they still own it. Those are a couple. I still have a few more of the two.
Thank you. So through you, Mayor Bondi. So in terms of the bylaw, like like Councilor McGuire Blaze mentioned, it is an existing bylaw, so not a lot has substantially changed in terms of the design and what's permitted to be out there. The biggest change being the move to the OTC guideline, which does have the requirements for traffic control. If you go through that guideline, you'll notice that there's a lot of different scenarios in terms of what's required for traffic control. In the Essex Center, where there's now a flex street concept, a lot less is required in terms of traffic control because the curb actually provides a barrier to traffic. It's considered a barrier under the OTC guideline. So a lot less is required in that area. Keeping in mind that this bylaw also applies to other urban centers within the town. There could be the need for a pedestrian boardwalk. There could be a need for barriers, like concrete barriers or that level of protection. So the cost could vary from, let's say $500 to $10,000, but it's all going to depend on the situation at hand, right? So that this bylaw will allow for that process to take place. When a business does approach us about it, we would be able to cost that out and provide that information ahead of any commitment. They wouldn't have their hands tied to those commitments. Further to that, we do provide a lot of flexibility when it comes to the patio, what they want to put on the side. So a good example would be the sidewalks or the patios that occurred in Essex Center. We didn't require them to be in the parking spaces. We let them decide or what they thought would be best for their business. And that didn't always mean taking up parking spaces, requiring traffic control. So all that flexibility built in can allow them that flexibility to decide. And a good example would be if a business or a restaurant business wanted to build a very large patio because most of their clientele wanted to be outside or they needed something very large. We could accommodate that under this guideline now to be able to provide the infrastructure and the signage that they require. And then they would be able to evaluate from the costing that we provide them for traffic control or the boardwalk or whatever, whether it's feasible for them as a business. When it comes to your question about if a business decides that they no longer require that and the traffic control isn't required, though most of that signage and most of those things have a life cycle on them anyways. So, I mean, I would assume that somebody that would want to be there for a long period of time, that those signs would need to be replaced, or we could potentially even give it to them because they paid for it. We would have no issue with that, but if they didn't, we would just retain it. So we could work out that deal because they're paying for those traffic control devices, that they keep it as long as, yeah.
I'm more thinking about the ones that are going to be wanting to be in the parking spaces. So on I'll call it the west side of Main Street, they have much bigger sidewalks. They can have them on the patio on the sidewalks. But on the other side, we're talking about parking spaces where some of them may want to take up the parking spaces. My concern my question is are we deterring, is this bylaw by them having to pay for it, is it going to deter them from expanding that footprint? Because they really can't take advantage of the sidewalk. It's just not big enough. They would have to go across the sidewalk into the parking space. Someone like Shinkles, for example, it was 2 parking spaces out front and half another one. If she ever decided they want to do seating out there for lunchtime and they could take up those 2 spots, but what's the cost that would cost? And if it's too much, they might say, well, that's, and I was in London last week on Dundas, and there's a business that's been out of business for a while now, and their patio that's set up in the flex area is still there. So, and I'm not sure if it's there because the city doesn't have the right to take it down, or so that's why I'm asking questions. But yeah, it's a policy, I guess. I just wondering if it's deterring people because it's going to be so costly to do it anyways. And then when it comes to the parking spaces, is it just in Essex Center that we're going to be permitting that, or could somebody that has a restaurant down the road outside of the downtown business area also take up a parking space if they wish?
Through the chair. So yeah, like I was mentioning, this is for any urban center. So we would permit the closure of parking spaces, for instance, in Harrow. The difference is that because Harrow isn't a flex street concept, that they would have more pedestrian protection that's required. But depending on where they decided they wanted to set up the patio, so you may see in other communities that you build a pedestrian boardwalk within the parking spaces. And then that allows the business to decide, okay, are they going to set up tables on that boardwalk and allow pedestrians to move along the face of the building, or set up their patio along the face of the building and put pedestrians into the boardwalk? That flexibility will be there for them, but yeah, that requirement to build a boardwalk would be required if we had to propose parking spaces in other urban centers.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, so I guess my last comment on it is I hope it works because I like the idea. I think we all like the idea of the businesses in the spring, summertime and into the fall, having that footprint out on the sidewalks and possibly into parking spaces where need be. And so if this is the policy, then perfect.
Karen, my one comment is I think that, we would talk with the proponents before going out, like if in spending like $4,000 and then coming to them and giving them an invoice with $4,000, we would give them kind of like an estimate if that's possible. I don't know. Mr. Macbeth?
The bylaw, and as part of the procedures, we would be having a pre-consultation with them we could see what they proposed and then give them the costing. And then from there, we would secure any type of traffic control measures or materials if it had to be a boardwalk that had to be constructed at that time.
You, all in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to finance and business services, external audit extension services, needing a mover and a seconder that finance and business services be received and that council award the second year extension to KPMG in the amount of $32,000. Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Hammond, supported by Councillor McGuire Blaze. Any questions to our administration? All in favor? And that is carried. Development Services 2024-06, release of securities and assumption of Townsview residential subdivision. Needing a mover and a seconder that the development services be received and that the performance securities on file for Townsview residential subdivision be fully released and that bylaw 2348 be read a first, second, and third time finally passed on November 18th. Moved by Councillor Verbeek, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. All in favor, and that's carried. Drainage 2410, appointment of an engineer for the McLean Drain. I think he does. Yeah. Oh, he doesn't know how, but the drainage engineer 2024-10 be received and that council appoint N.J. Peralta Engineering under Section 76 of the Drainage Act to provide an updated schedule of assessment for the McLean Drain. Needing a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Mady, supported by Councillor Allard. Any questions? All in favor? Oh, Councillor Mady has a question, and then I'll ask all in favor.
To you, Your Worship. I was just in that report, they talked about the fact that the McLean Drain kind of spanned across two municipalities at the time, the last time part of the main work was done. I'm just curious, when we hire the engineer, he's going to break that cost up and we're going to get a look at what that cost is because some of the work was done. All the rest of it's going to be getting done. I just want an idea of what the people that have already paid, how it's going to work out for them.
Through the chair, so the engineer that's appointed will be looking at the assessment schedule. So they'll be creating a whole new assessment schedule for that drain.
All in favor? And that is carried. Community Services 2024-53, Special Events Resource Team, for November 24. Needing a mover and a seconder that it be received for information. Councillor McGuire Blaze, Councillor Allard, any questions? Lots of nice, fun events coming up. All in favor? And that is carried. Community Services New Year's Eve event and New Year's Eve Town sponsored events. Needing a mover and a seconder that the Community Services report be received and that council approve the town sponsored New Year's Eve and New Year's Eve day events. Public skating and all of that fun stuff. Moved by Councillor Allard, supported by Councillor Verbeek. All in favor? and that is carried. Community Services Special Event Notice, Harrow Kinsman Club, Santa Claus Parade, needing a mover and a seconder that the Community Services report be received and that council approve closing Herniman Street, King Street between Victoria Street and Sunset Drive, Victoria Street South between King Street and Maple Street between Victoria Street South and McCaffey Street between Maple Street and the Harrow and Colchester South Recreation Complex between 5:30 and 8 for the Harrow Kinsman Santa Claus Parade. Moved by Councillor Hammond, supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions? Hope to see you there. All in favor? That's carried. Moving to Director Chadwick for a verbal report on the Rural Transit Feasibility Study Project.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. So some of us are aware the town has secured a $50,000 grant from the federal government for a rural transit or regional transit feasibility study specific to the town of Essex. This will assist us in retaining a transportation planning consultant to review the issues and opportunities to municipal-wide transit options in the town of Essex. This study is expected to be fully funded by this federal grant and will have no financial impact to the town. Council's resolution tonight of support is a requirement prior to entering into a contribution agreement with the federal government. Administration is targeting to initiate the study sometime in spring of 2025, and it must be completed by spring of 2026. Thank you.
And a seconder that council support the Rural Transit Feasibility Study Project in the amount of $50,000 to be fully funded under the terms and conditions of the Government of Canada Rural Transit Solutions Fund. Moved by Councillor Mady, supported by Councillor Hammond. I think this was on Councillor Mady's wish. That's why I was looking to you. It's on your wish list. Any further comments? All in favor? That is carried. Reports from our youth council members. Mr. Foster.
Yeah, just like to mention that our Legion 201 in town here is having their craft show and marketplace this weekend on the 24th. It's from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. free admission. Come check out what they got. Maybe you'll find some Christmas gifts for your family.
And I would like to congratulate the Essex High Senior Boys Volleyball team who will be traveling to the OFSA Championships this week to compete against all the other provinces or all the other schools in the province.
For those reports tonight, County Council update. Deputy Mayor Shepley, do you have anything this evening?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. Through you, our November 6th County Council update. Development charges study is underway. County Council received an update from the Hemerson Consulting Limited and hired to help Essex County introduce a development charges to fund growth related infrastructure. Hemerson explained that development charges require background study and council approval by approved by law. The study will assess the project growth over the next 10 years to ensure the consistent service levels. The background study and policy recommendations should be back by early 2025. Council also adopted its new official plan and has sent it off to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing for final approval. A good one, the budget of 2025 to be publicly released on November 14th. We received it on the November 7th, and it's made available to the public on November 14th. Deliberations begin on November 28th. It's important to note the proposed budget includes a tax rate increase of 6.34%. County Council also received the 2025 road rehabilitation. Maintaining Essex County roads will require $20.6 million to rehabilitate 33 kilometers, including 2 bridge projects, 3 culvert replacements, and 13 road repairs. From the report presented to Council, the Manager of Design and Construction, Carolyn Templin. The 2025 program, pending budget approval, includes $4 million in grants, $16.6 million from the county levy. Additionally, $2.8 million is proposed for 10 kilometers paved shoulders for the countywide active transportation system, with an additional 10 kilometers added in partnership with local municipalities. On to EMS. Essex County Council has approved the purchase of 7 new ambulances for Essex Windsor EMS to be delivered in 2026 at a cost of over $2 million. Advance approvals ensure the necessary parts can be ordered with the down payment to the vendor, Crestline Coach Limited. County Council also gave approval to Essex Windsor EMS to contract MSJ Automotive Services and its primary fleet maintenance provider with Ram Chevrolet Buick GMC as a secondary. The EMS fleet, it's important to note, includes 41 ambulances, 9 emergency vehicles, and other support vehicles. And lastly, Mayor Bondi proposed notice of motion. At the November 6th meeting, Mayor Bondi put forth a notice of motion requesting County Council create an email link, a one-stop link, if you'll have that, to send feedback to all of County Council with one link that would send email to all County Council members, allowing public feedback with ease. After much debate, County Council directed staff to prepare a report on setting up an online mechanism for residents to send a message to all of County Council members at the same time. And that's my November 6th County Council report. Thank you.
Shepley, that was a really comprehensive report. Looking for a motion to accept the verbal update from County Council from our Deputy Mayor. Councillor Hammond, Councillor Mady, all in favor, and that's carried. There's no correspondence on our agenda tonight. I think that's the first time I've ever seen that. Committee meeting minutes. Looking for a motion that the committee meeting minutes listed in agenda item 14 be received, approved, and adopted as circulated. We have the Essex Festival Committee, the unapproved minutes, and we'll come back and approve them when they are approved. The Affordable Housing Task Force, Santa's Village Committee, Arts, Culture, Tourism, Essex Center BIA, Essex Municipal Heritage Committee. Looking for a mover and a seconder for those. Councillor Hammond, supported by Councillor McGuire Blaze. Any questions or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, and that is carried. Nothing under financial or new business. I will now turn it over to Director Malandrucolo.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. Through you, the following notice of motion was presented at the November 4, 2024 regular council meeting and is being brought forward this evening for council's consideration. This notice of motion is moved by Mayor Bondi, and it's that Town of Essex Council instruct administration to implement a hiring freeze for any newly created full-time and part-time positions at the town effective immediately. Because Deputy Mayor Shepley is joining virtually and it's Mayor Bondi's motion, I need to make a point of order and ask for council to move and second somebody to be appointed as chair for item 17.1. Do I have a motion? Councillor Guerin.
Councillor Verbeek.
Seconder, Councillor Mady. So moved by Councillor Guerin and seconded by Councillor Mady that Councillor Verbeek be appointed as chair for item 17.1. And that motion's carried.
We get a seconder to the mayor's motion? Councillor McGuire Blaze, all in favor? Oh.
That's okay. I just realized going into budget that we need to look for some ways to stabilize our budget. I think this is going to be probably our hardest budget this term, with the OPP increase coming in, already adding a 3.3% increase, and then our contractual obligations for our other staff positions adding another increase. And if we might want to get some information from Director Drusevich, but if we add any new positions, that will further increase our budget. So it was just something to talk about with council and see what the will of council is. Just looking to make the budget a little easier on our residents, and we can always come back to it throughout the year, even if there's a business case or a grant that follows along. Yeah, just raising it with my fellow councilors to see if there's any appetite going into budget.
Okay, first comments from Councillor McGuire Blaze.
Thank you through the chair. I supported this because I think it's a great idea. I wish we would have done it a couple months ago before we pre-hired everybody. But I think it's a great idea, and I look forward to not hiring in the upcoming budget. So thank you for putting it forward. Just I wish it happened a couple months ago.
Deputy Mayor Shepley?
Thank you. And through the chair, I'm just curious if, is there a timeline on this? Is it for indefinite, or do we have a timeline that we want to relook at this? I'm just wondering if there's any discussion on that.
Thank you, Chair Verbeek. I think our org review said that we needed a couple positions. So I think, you know, if we delay those positions or not hire them in 2025, we did just, you know, upgrade a couple positions so we can in 25 stabilize with that and then look at it. And then I think it would be up to our staff if there is a grant or an upswing in something, or you know, we get financing for something else, it's up to our staff to come to us and plead a really strong business case. But I think going into budget, I think we need to show fiscal responsibility.
Thank you. And through the chair, just my second question, sorry, Councillor Verbeek. Would that, so if we were to lose a staff member, we could replace a staff member with the hiring freeze wouldn't affect us hiring to replace somebody who's here currently. Is that correct?
Deputy Mayor, Mayor's asked me to respond to that one. So I have clarification with Mayor Bondi. This would be for any brand new positions that are creating where we're looking for additional funding. So for example, you'll see some postings for a water distributor operator, a senior planner, manager legal. Those are been vacant, so we're just replacing them. So those, my understanding, could still proceed. But if we're looking, for example, on a budget to add a new position, that is where the hiring freeze is affecting that, plus any new students.
Thank you.
Director Jerusevich, and then Councillor Guerin, and then Councillor McGuire Blaze.
Through the chair, I do just want to advise that depending on what happens tonight, we are very close to having a finalized budget. It's in final review right now. It heads to print on Wednesday. So in September, there was direction that any positions within that org review were considered in the 2025 budget for deliberations. So that will be present in the document. It doesn't mean, depending on which way this vote goes, it's up to council and deliberations, it would be removed from any tax rate impact. So I just want you to know, I have to send it to print. I can't change it at this point. It's too close. As Friday, you get the final document. So we'll just be clear in deliberations that should this motion go through, that would be revised accordingly. Okay.
Please.
Thanks to the chair. I mean, I think we should always be cognizant of adding employees, and I think at budget times when we deliberate, I mean, we do that anyways. I think we need to be flexible. I don't think we need to put this motion forward because come budget in another couple, 3 weeks or so, we're going to be hashing all that out anyways. I have a question to I guess I'll go to Deputy Mayor Shepley. He did his county report on that proposed 6.34. Did the county also recommend a hiring freeze?
No, that wasn't suggested at county. In fact, we pre-hired several, pre-approved, which will be determined at budget.
Okay, further through the chair. Yeah, okay, so where I stand on it is I won't support the motion. I think, like I said, we need to be cognizant of adding employees all the time anyways. I haven't even seen the budget, so I can't really speak to it until I see it. I think it's too premature for me to agree with this.
Mr. McGuire Blaze, please.
Thank you through the chair. So thanks for clarifying, Director Jerusevich. My comment earlier was regarding those positions that we had approved to put in 2025 budget. And I'm happy to hear that we didn't actually say yes to them. They're going to budget. We can still say no. So thank you for clarifying that. And my other question is, we have, CAO Suites mentioned that there's current positions up. And to my understanding, and I could be wrong, which is why I'm asking, are those positions, have they been vacant for a period of time? Do we actually need to fill those positions? So maybe if they've been vacant for a period of time, we've been looking, are they positions that actually need to be filled? We're doing okay without them? Can you speak to that?
Verbeek. No, the water distribution operator is a position that we need to have filled. You've seen, I think, a lot of legislation, be it water meter readings, et cetera. Senior planner is just probably in the past couple of months became vacant. So we're looking at filling that. And the manager in legal has probably been the longest, around 8 months. But when that became open, we're waiting to see what the org review would happen because of the legal component we wanted to add. So no, and I would, if you're looking at any of those, I'd kind of remind you, we're a very thin workforce to begin with. So that's why as long as we can keep where we're going, we're already kind of top of their overtime hours, but we put out the work, which is great, but I do think we need to fill the positions that we currently have, or we may have some retirements, for example, coming up. And when those come, we'd be looking at filling those too, just to keep the same level of service.
One more question through the chair. So I don't think I got I didn't hear the answer that Deputy Mayor Shepley was asking. Are we putting a timeline on this? It's when he asked the question, there was really no timeline. It was like, well, you can come to us with a proposal, which is what you do now. So we're either saying absolutely no hiring until 2027 or 2026, or we're leaving it as is and you have to come to us anyways, because if unless we put a timeline in, it's a hard no, then I don't see the purpose of doing this, in my opinion.
Week. So a couple things. County, the deputy mayor and I did meet with the CAO and we talked about a potential hiring freeze there. And it could potentially happen, I think, because county councilors, the tax increase at the county is huge this year. It's the biggest ever. So we're going to need to show leadership at the county as well. The county is a little different in a couple departments. What they're bringing forward at the county is that 2 positions in EMS, 1 in Sun Parlor. Sun Parlor is the nursing home and it's like a dietary position. I would not want to cut the Sun Parlor home. To me, that's different. And I would not want to cut EMS because our code reds and code blacks are completely back on track. So anything healthcare and nursing home at the county, I would not. The other 2 positions which I am in the position that I am not going to be supporting at the county as well, because our residents need bold, focused decisions right now because of all of the other costs in our budget. The other position is IT, and we just hired an IT director at the county. So I want to let that IT director settle in before we bring in more help there. And also the other position is a legal body, and we just had the county clerk split into 2. So the county clerk split into 2, and David Sundin is the new director of, let's just say, legal. I don't exactly know the word. And they're already looking for not a student, but they're an intern. So they're already looking for that. So those 2, I think the county needs to wait. If we don't start making budget cuts, our residents are going to be at our doors. Like we have a 3.5% with just OPP. That's mandatory. We can't get away from that. So setting the tone right now, going into budget, having our staff have expectations that we're not having more staff, I think is a good practice. We can talk about staff and budget if we want to, but this is just a way to show residents right away that we have their back, because we have a 4% already with just staff. That doesn't even include any asset management. So we have some hard decisions. We either need to cut staff, cut service, cut capital projects. We're already cutting capital projects because we can't do the same amount of capital projects we did last year. We have some really hard decisions, and I just want council to know that. And this is one way that we can say to the residents, we hear you already.
Thank you through the chair. So just directed at Mayor Bondi. So are you proposing like a 1-year hard no, like 2025, we're not going to do any hiring regardless of what comes to us in any kind of proposal? Is that what we're going to, because I'll support that, but like it's a hard no.
I can answer that Counselor Verbeek, yes, unless there's a grant, like there could be a grant. Like, for example, our manager of economic services we have a 1-year contract employee with a grant. Unless there is a grant or some other stream of funding that funds that person, but not taxpayer dollars.
Okay, next to Counselor Mady, and then I see your hand, Counselor Guerin, and I'm going to ask that if we speak once and then move on after you. And do I get comments as the chair? Okay.
Thank you, and through you, Counselor Verbeek. So, like, when we're talking about not hiring and not bringing in students this year, we're talking about making some service, some level of service cuts right away too, right?
Dr. Jurusevich, please.
Through the chair, in my understanding interpretation, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor Bondi, it was for newly created positions. So currently students are grant funded. They're funded for the most part, and we already have them within existing budget. So it wouldn't be a new ask. So direction was given from the CAO that no new students could be presented in budget this year.
Aaron, please.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, I totally understand the optics of why the motion is being put forward, and I get it, ahead of budget, I get all that. I think the timing is, we're going to discuss all this in budget like we do every year anyways. I haven't seen the budget. I'm not privy to the mayor's. She gets to see some stuff that I don't see and we don't see. So until I see what's being proposed, there may be other places. I just don't want to handcuff us in our budget deliberations, put a freeze on hiring and find out we got an area that's, has staffing that's getting burnt out. And there's another place we could have maybe saved some dollars. We can take care of all this within budget. It's our role, it's our duty to the taxpayer to be cognizant of all the time of hiring, of anything we do, whether it's hiring staff or making decisions on service levels and making decision on anything and we can do that in budget. We're going to do that. It's going to come before us and we're going to make a decision at that point in time. So I'm still opposed to it.
Through the chair, from a legal perspective, I don't think you want to make something that has such a hardline stance for a long period. So I would say you'd probably want to limit it to something like April or May, or stick with what Mayor Bondi was saying and allow administration to come and make a proposal in case there are exceptional circumstances or something like that, that you don't want to handcuff council.
So I guess my question probably would be it's going to be to some staff. I'm not sure who. So my understanding is if we pass this, what the end result is that, so next week when we start with the budget deliberations, that's just one piece off the table for now. So any new hires are not going to make it into the current budget as we eventually pass it this year. However, as is always the case, at any point in time, can't administration come forward and say, look, this department is like floundering, we need to hire X amount of people. Isn't that what we're doing here tonight? If I'm looking for clarity. I mean, we're not saying a hard no hires at all going forward, just none in this accepted in the budget as we deliberate.
Councilor Verbeek, I think it is a hard no. I think that is what's being presented by Mayor Bondi in this notice of motion. So if that is the case, and that's kind of where Director Malandroukoulos says, legally, in the best interest of town, if that is where the stance you're taking to support this, there should be some timeline to it.
Deputy Mayor Shepley.
To you, Councillor, I'm just wondering if I'm agreeable to the timeline. I mean, ultimately, I agree with Counselor Garen. And while I understand the reasoning behind it, it's a feel good motion. We're not handcuffing ourselves if we do this, if we put an end date of April where we can revisit it. I'm supportive of that. I think it can come back and something we can revisit. I don't necessarily like the idea of handcuffing ourselves till next budget, because something could happen where we need to have that staff or as Counselor Garen said, I'll support it. But I would like to I don't know if a friendly amendment would be malleable, that we could maybe bring this to April or May and then revisit it as a council.
Deputy Mayor, is that your motion? Can we have a seconder? Or no, yeah, the motion's on the table.
It was an amendment to the motion, or if that's possible, if that's pleasing to the mover and seconder.
Mayor? The mayor says may. Are you agreeable to that as the amendment? Okay. Who was the seconder? Okay. Are you agreeable to the amendment, Councillor McGuire Blaze? Okay. Comment from Councillor Garen.
Chair, we're going to be setting a budget. In the budget, it's going to say what we can and can't do. Come May, we just can't add a job. And it's where we're going to get the money from. You just can't add a job in May. So the timeline would have to be till next budget would be a year. And you can't do a year because, again, I can't back that motion. We're going to be going into to budget shortly. I mean, just like the mayor said on the county council, they've got a proposed budget. There's jobs in there. They're going to go back at budget and they're going to try to get some of them cut. That's the time to do it.
Youth Councillor Foster, and then I believe if everybody's commented, we'll call the vote on the amended motion.
So I know that I work with the aquatics and programs section, and I know that a lot of people that are in university, if their schedules get a lot more difficult for a specific session, they'll leave and then come back for another session. So I don't know if that would apply, if that would be considered hiring someone new to come back, if they weren't working with us for that time. I'd just like an answer to that.
To Youth Council Foster. No, your position is considered students for us. So according to this, it's only kind of our full and regular part-time that would apply to. Students this would not apply to them.
Thank you.
All right, we'll ask for a vote. All that support the motion by Mayor Bondi with the amendment to May. Oh, and all opposed. So the motion fails. Can I get rid of this?
Thank you. Moving on to item number 17.2 on the agenda. The following notices of motion are for presentment only and will be brought forward for council's consideration at the December 2nd, 2024 regular council meeting. There are 3 of them. The first one, moved by Councillor Hammond, is that council direct administration to present a report to council that addresses the following with regard to the Richmond drain. 1, review the drain and assess for blockages that would hinder the flow of stormwater. 2, review and identify any trouble spots that impede the flow of stormwater. 3, potential consequences attributed to intensification in and around the Harrow Center. And 4, identify and report on potential actions that the town could take to improve the Richmond drain and the costs associated with them. The second notice of motion was moved by Mayor Bondi, that council direct administration to investigate and propose options to waive taxi cab licensing fees for the 2025 calendar year. And the third notice of motion is moved by Counselor Meady. Whereas ensuring the safety of students traveling to and from school is a shared priority for municipalities, school boards, and student transportation services of Windsor, Essex. And whereas municipalities possess valuable local knowledge regarding road safety, traffic patterns, and infrastructure conditions that can aid in determining safe and effective school bus locations. And whereas the placement or relocation of school bus stops without municipal consultation may inadvertently create safety concerns for students and families. Be it resolved that the Town of Essex direct administration to prepare and send a formal letter to the relevant school boards and student transportation services of Windsor, Essex, requesting that municipalities be consulted when determining or relocating school bus stops within their jurisdiction, following the completion of the school board's internal review process, and that the letter emphasize the importance of collaboration to ensure school bus stop decisions prioritize student safety and align with local infrastructure and traffic considerations.
Like next meeting's going to be a fun one. Reports and announcements from council members. Counselor Garin. We'll just keep going all the way down.
Thank you, through the mayor. Yeah, I want to thank everyone who came out this past weekend for the Essex 73's alumni weekend and Wall of Honor induction ceremony. And although we lost a game, lots of alumni showed up, lots of fans showed up. It was a good weekend. And congratulations to Dan Mahan, Tyler Scott, and Tanner Gallant, the newest inductees to the 73's Wall of Honor.
Yeah, I just want to mention one of our first and premier events is coming up on the 2nd of December, the annual tractor parade at the Viewpoint Winery. It's always a spectacular event. I suggest you start planning for it now.
Thank you. And yeah, I one of the best events that they have out there, I think, is that tractor pull now. It's becoming a good staple. But I have nothing to offer. Thanks.
All right, as we're approaching Christmas season, a lot of our charitable groups and our service clubs are amping up their fundraising efforts. So you'll see the Salvation Army out with their kettles all over. Be generous if you can, or volunteer if you can to take an hour or two at the kettle. Our Goodfellows are selling their tickets. All the money that the Goodfellows make on these tickets is going to be divided up between our local food bank. So yeah, our Legion has the Toys for Tots basket at the door. Be generous if you can. These organizations share with the less fortunate.
Today.
Thank you. I just want to remind everybody that today actually kicks off the week of anti-bullying week. I'm wearing my pink for anti-bullying. I just want to remind everybody to be kind. I think it's really important for parents to talk to their kids about what is going on social media, and how they might be feeling. Either they're being bullies on social media or they're receiving they are being bullied on social media. I think it's really important, especially now. Our kids are going through something that us as parents have never had to deal with before, and it affects more youth than you would think. So I know that it has affected a family just recently in our community, and my deepest condolences goes out to that family. And I just want you to reach out and talk to your kids. Thanks.
Oh, Deputy Mayor, what do you
Nothing-
have to report on? We want to hear from you the most.
Nothing to report.
Okay, yeah. Bylaws requiring a third and final reading. Bylaw 2394, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the November 4th regular council meeting. Be read third and finally passed November 18th, needing a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Hammond, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. All in favor? That's carried. Bylaw 2368, being a bylaw to enter an agreement with Joe Mayhew to perform duties of superintendent and caretaker for the African Methodist Episcopal AME Cemetery in Ward 2. be read a first, second, third time, finally passed on November 18th. Needing a mover, Counselor Garen, seconder, Deputy Mayor Shepley, all in favor. That's carried. Bylaw 2391. This is the bylaw where we provide for a declaration and disposition of surplus lands, parkland adjacent to Bridlewood Park in Essex Center. This bylaw 2391 be read a first and a second time and provisionally adopted on November 18th. That does mean it comes back to us one more time. Needing a mover and a seconder. Moved by Counselor Garen, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Any questions? Oh my gosh. All in favor. He didn't see it there in the front. He has balloons on his screen, so that's carried. Bylaw 2402 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the November 18th regular council meeting be read a first, second time and provisionally adopted November 18th. Needing a mover and a seconder. Moved by Counselor Garen, supported by Counselor Allard. All in favor. That's carried. Monday, November 25th at 4 to 7 is our budget walkthrough. Join us in person or watch us on YouTube. Needing a mover and a seconder for adjournment. Counselor Garen, Counselor Meady, all in favor. That's carried. Have a good evening, everybody.